Sophia wandered through the sun-dappled park, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, the soft rustle of leaves a comforting soundtrack to her thoughts. She always noticed the little things, the way sunlight kissed the benches, the faint aroma of freshly baked bread from the nearby cafe, the quiet rhythm of life around her. Samantha, on the other hand, was already laughing at something bold she had just done on a whim, her energy impossible to ignore. The sisters shared a look, a mix of amusement and silent understanding, their differences both a source of tension and affection. Today, though, something, or rather someone, was about to disrupt their usual balance. A newcomer was strolling toward them, confident, with a smile that seemed to pull light into the air around him. His name was Billy, and even from a distance, he radiated a charm that made heads turn. Billy's first interaction with Samantha was effortless, a teasing grin and a witty comment that made her laugh so freely she felt her chest lift with warmth. Sophia watched quietly, her cheeks warming as she noticed the subtle sparkle in his eyes when he glanced in her direction. He approached her too, gently asking about her sketchbook, genuinely curious. And somehow, just like that, Sophia felt a little flutter she hadn't felt in years. There was an understated magic in those moments, a pull that seemed to tether them, invisible yet undeniable. Each sister felt a spark, small but insistent, as if destiny were playfully nudging them both toward something unfamiliar. In the background, the world hummed softly, blissfully unaware of the complications quietly stirring. As they walked and talked, the playful tension between the sisters began to shimmer just beneath the surface. They exchanged glances that lingered longer than usual, each noticing the subtle shifts in the other's expressions. There was admiration, curiosity, and a pinch of envy, all tangled together in the quiet corners of their hearts. Billy, oblivious to the internal storm he had sparked, continued to charm them with casual jokes and gentle attention, unaware that the seeds of a subtle conflict were already taking root. Sophia found herself stealing small smiles when he wasn't looking, while Samantha felt an unfamiliar tug at her protective, impulsive heart. It was innocent, yet potent, the kind of beginning that makes life feel just a little dangerous in the best way possible. Sophia felt a strange mix of excitement and hesitation as she watched Samantha joking with Billy, the sound of their laughter echoing in the late afternoon air. Her heart raced, a quiet storm she didn't quite understand, and she tried to focus on the soft sway of the trees to calm herself. Every glance Billy threw her way felt like a secret, a private acknowledgement of something she couldn't yet name. Samantha, with her fearless energy, seemed oblivious to Sophia's growing awareness. Yet every time she leaned into his charm, Sophia's stomach twisted with a mix of longing and guilt. It was as if two invisible currents were pulling them in the same direction, unstoppable yet unspoken. The park, with its sun-warmed paths and hidden corners, suddenly felt alive, charged with possibility and tension. Billy, with that effortless ease that made people forget themselves, paused beside a small fountain, tossing a coin and making a wish aloud. He laughed softly at his own words, and somehow that laugh lingered in Sophia's ears long after the sound faded. Samantha leaned closer, playfully nudging him, and the spark between them became undeniable, a teasing dance that made Sophia's pulse quicken. She found herself observing every subtle movement, every tilt of his head, every warmth in his smile, cataloging them in her mind like a secret diary she couldn't yet share. The sisters' silent awareness of one another grew heavier, a delicate tension threading through their easy camaraderie. And still, neither dared speak it out loud, letting the unspoken truth float between them like fragile glass. Even as they parted ways later, the weight of their shared encounter lingered, almost tangible. Sophia walked home slowly, her thoughts a tangle of emotions, curiosity, excitement, and a pinch of worry. Samantha, on the other hand, skipped ahead with a mischievous grin, thrilled by the day's unexpected encounters, unaware of the quiet storm in her sister's heart. Billy's presence had left a mark on them both, subtle but persistent, and the sense of anticipation was impossible to ignore. They knew, somewhere deep down, that things were shifting, that the delicate balance of sisterhood was being tested by something neither of them had anticipated. And in that unspoken awareness, the spark of something more powerful, and possibly complicated, was already beginning to glow. That evening, Sophia sat by her window, the fading light brushing her cheeks as she replayed every interaction with Billy in her mind. Her heart ached with a strange mix of wonder and uncertainty, and she couldn't help but notice how even the quiet moments felt charged with meaning. Meanwhile, Samantha sprawled on the living room sofa, scrolling through her phone with a grin, her thoughts filled with flashes of Billy's smile and the way he had made her laugh so effortlessly. Though the sisters shared the same home, a subtle distance was forming, a tension neither could quite name. Both of them felt the same spark, the same pull, yet pride and hesitation kept their lips sealed. It was a fragile balance, thrilling and frightening all at once. Over the next few days, small interactions with Billy continued, each one seemingly innocent, but loaded with emotion. Sophia found herself lingering by the cafe counter just to catch a glimpse of him, her shy smile betraying the flutter in her chest. Samantha, ever bold, would sidle into conversation with a teasing comment or daring question, her laughter ringing out like bells that drew Billy's attention. With every word, every shared glance, the invisible thread binding the three of them grew taut, humming with possibility. And all the while, the sisters were acutely aware of each other's proximity, each trying to navigate the unfamiliar territory of shared desire. A subtle conflict was stirring beneath the surface, quiet yet inevitable, threatening the harmony they had always known. By the weekend, the tension reached a delicate, almost unbearable peak. At the local park, where it had all begun, the three found themselves wandering in overlapping paths, drawn together yet careful, testing boundaries they hadn't even named. Sophia's thoughts raced with questions, fear, and longing, while Samantha's heart jumped at every small gesture from Billy. And Billy, with that effortless charm, remained unaware of the brewing storm between the sisters, focused only on connecting with each in his own way. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the paths they walked, as if foreshadowing the subtle conflict quietly simmering beneath their smiles. It was the kind of day that felt ordinary, yet held the quiet promise of a dramatic shift, leaving hearts restless and minds alert, knowing that nothing would ever be quite the same. Sophia sat at her desk late into the evening, the soft glow of her lamp casting shadows over pages filled with half-finished sketches. Her mind was a whirlwind, caught between the thrill of Billy's attention and the gnawing worry about Samantha. She traced the curve of his smile in her memory, her chest tightening with emotions she didn't fully understand. Every heartbeat felt louder, as if echoing the dilemma she was silently facing. Should she tell Billy how she felt? Or should she keep it buried, protecting both her heart and her sisters? The quiet of the room seemed to amplify every thought, every flicker of longing and guilt, until it almost hurt to breathe. Meanwhile, Samantha couldn't stop replaying the playful moments she had shared with Billy that week. Even her usually unstoppable energy was tinged with uncertainty as she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. There was excitement, yes, but also an unfamiliar tension, a knot in her stomach she couldn't quite unravel. She loved teasing him, loved the easy laughter they shared, but she hated the way her heart skipped when she saw Sophia quietly glancing his way. Could she ever tell her sister how she felt without breaking something precious between them? The questions spun around in her mind, unrelenting, leaving her both exhilarated and frustrated at the same time. And yet, the thought of Billy lingered, insistent and impossible to ignore. Billy, unaware of the storm he had stirred, noticed the small, lingering looks from both sisters, and found himself subtly drawn to each in different ways. With Sophia, it was the quiet depth in her eyes, the thoughtful pauses that made him want to know her more. With Samantha, it was the fearless spark in her laughter, the way she seemed to light up every space she entered. He couldn't deny the pull he felt, yet he had no idea how to navigate the unspoken tension between the sisters. Each interaction, innocent as it seemed, added layers to the complexity swirling around them. The dynamic had shifted from playful curiosity to a delicate, invisible web of emotions, leaving all three on the edge of discovery and inevitable confrontation. Sophia found herself walking through the quiet streets one evening, the city lights flickering like distant stars, reflecting the turmoil in her heart. She replayed every moment with Billy, analyzing his words, his smiles, even the pauses that seemed to linger just for her. The thought of telling Samantha, or even confronting her own feelings, felt heavier than any step she took. Every shadow seemed to whisper doubt, every passing stranger a reminder of how fragile this delicate balance had become. She wanted honesty, clarity, but the fear of hurting her sister gnawed at her resolve. And yet, with each heartbeat, the truth pressed closer, impossible to keep buried forever. Samantha, meanwhile, wrestled with her own private storm in the safety of her room, pacing in circles as she whispered Billy's name under her breath. She tried to convince herself that her feelings were fleeting, just a spark that would fade with time. But deep down, she knew the truth. The thought of sharing him with Sophia, or confessing to him first, was a puzzle she couldn't solve. The playful excitement she had felt in his presence was now tangled with guilt, jealousy, and hope, all wrapped in a confusing knot. Every memory, every glance from Billy felt heavier, charged with a significance she couldn't ignore. Her chest tightened, as if the simple act of breathing could betray her secret at any moment. Billy, gradually becoming aware of the sisters' subtle attention, began to notice the differences in the way they engaged with him. With Sophia, there was thoughtfulness, a quiet longing in her eyes that made him pause and truly see her. With Samantha, there was immediacy, an open joy that pulled him into her orbit effortlessly. He responded naturally, unaware that each smile, each shared joke, each gentle touch was feeding a delicate tension brewing between the sisters. In moments of reflection, he began to sense that something unspoken lingered, a secret swirling in the air just beyond his reach. The threads connecting the three of them were tightening, making the simple act of interaction a careful dance. And somewhere beneath it all, the sisters knew a confrontation was coming, though neither could yet predict its shape. Finally, the inevitable moment came when the sisters found themselves alone, the air between them heavy with unspoken truths. Sophia's fingers fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve, her voice barely above a whisper, as she tried to find the courage to speak. Samantha, usually fearless, looked at her sister with a mixture of anticipation and hesitation, realizing that neither of them could hide their feelings any longer. The tension was palpable, each heartbeat echoing the same question: who would confess first, and how would the other respond? In that quiet, charged moment, the bond they shared felt both fragile and unbreakable, caught between loyalty, love, and desire. The room seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for their hearts to decide the path forward. Sophia finally admitted the truth in a trembling voice, the words spilling out faster than she could catch them, confessing her feelings for Billy and her fear of rivalry. Samantha's expression shifted through surprise, conflict, and finally, a reluctant understanding, the air thick with a shared recognition of desire and danger. For a brief moment, the sisters faced the mirror of their emotions, seeing both themselves and each other reflected in the same vulnerable light. There was no accusation, only the quiet acknowledgement of mutual longing, a delicate truce forming even as uncertainty lingered. Both realized that nothing would ever be simple again, that the spark between them and Billy had grown into a flame neither could easily control. And with that, the stage was set for a confrontation that was equal parts frightening and exhilarating. Meanwhile, Billy remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between the sisters, yet his presence loomed large in their thoughts, shaping their every choice. The awareness of his charm, his laughter, and the way he made each feel seen was now inseparable from their inner conflict. Both sisters wrestled with the question of whether to tell him or protect each other, their hearts pulling in conflicting directions. In the quiet tension that hung between them, there was a promise of inevitable confrontation, a choice that would change their lives forever. And as the evening shadows deepened, the sisters realized that whatever path they chose, the delicate balance of love, loyalty, and desire was about to be tested in ways they could never have imagined. Their journey toward truth, confession, and consequence was only just beginning. The following morning, Sophia woke with a knot in her chest, the memory of last night's confession replaying like a fragile, haunting melody. She knew that the next step, telling Billy, was inevitable, yet fear tangled with anticipation in every thought. Her fingers lingered over her phone as if the act of dialing could somehow slow the rush of courage she desperately needed. Meanwhile, Samantha paced her living room, restless and impatient, her usual confidence tempered by a rare vulnerability. She wanted honesty, clarity, but the thought of Billy's reaction filled her with equal parts hope and dread. Somewhere in the quiet of their separate rooms, the sisters shared the same anxious rhythm, unaware that the moment of reckoning was drawing near. When they finally met Billy that afternoon, the air was charged with a delicate tension, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Sophia spoke first, her voice soft but steady, revealing her feelings and the quiet turmoil that had kept her awake at night. Samantha followed, heart pounding, admitting her own attraction with a mix of boldness and vulnerability that left Billy momentarily speechless. The weight of their honesty hung between them, a fragile bridge connecting fear, hope, and desire. Each word seemed to resonate deeper than the last, filling the space with unspoken longing and the undeniable pull of attraction. In that shared vulnerability, the three felt an intimacy that was at once thrilling and terrifying. Billy, for a moment, simply listened, his expression unreadable, and the sisters felt a flicker of doubt, wondering if honesty had been a mistake. Then, with a calm warmth, he admitted something neither had expected. He liked them both, genuinely and deeply, and wanted to explore a connection with each of them. Shock rippled through Sophia and Samantha, disbelief mingling with a brief, flickering joy that caught them both off guard. Their hearts raced, emotions twisting in unexpected directions, as they tried to process the impossible, yet irresistible truth. In that instant, everything shifted: the rules, the boundaries, and the future itself, and the sisters realized they were standing at the threshold of something utterly unconventional and profoundly human. Sophia's mind swirled with a storm of emotions, disbelief clashing with a strange, tentative hope. She had pictured heartbreak, rivalry, maybe even anger, but not this. Billy wanted them both. Her chest tightened, a mix of relief and confusion making it hard to catch her breath. She glanced at Samantha, searching for her reaction, and found a mirrored mix of shock and curiosity flickering across her sister's face. The world around them seemed to blur, the familiar park and sunlight fading as their hearts adjusted to a new, uncertain reality. Every thought was a question. Could this work? Was it right? Could love really bend these rules? Samantha, ever the bold one, felt a spark of exhilaration even through the haze of disbelief. She laughed softly, almost incredulously, the sound carrying a nervous energy as she tried to process Billy's words. It wasn't easy. Her mind wrestled with societal norms, the whispers of what others might think, and the uncharted territory of loving alongside her sister. And yet, underneath the doubts, there was a genuine thrill, a sense of being chosen, of being seen in a way that was rare and intoxicating. She reached out instinctively, brushing a strand of hair from her face, as if grounding herself in the reality of his unexpected confession. In that moment, the impossible felt just within reach, fragile, but undeniably real. Billy watched them, aware of the whirlwind he had unleashed, yet calm in his certainty. He wanted them both, not out of whimsy, but because each of them filled something unique in his heart that he couldn't ignore. The sisters' reactions, shock, confusion, brief joy, were part of the journey he had hoped for, though he knew navigating it wouldn't be simple. Their intertwined emotions, loyalty, and desires formed a delicate web, one that required trust, honesty, and courage to explore. And as he looked between Sophia and Samantha, he sensed the unspoken question lingering in their eyes. Could love really exist without limits? The answer wasn't simple, but it was theirs to discover together, step by careful step. Sophia felt a rush of conflicting emotions, her heart both soaring and trembling. There was excitement, yes, but also a quiet fear of what others might think and how their bond as sisters could change. She had always valued her connection with Samantha, and now that connection was tangled with desire, love, and possibility. Each glance at Billy brought a surge of warmth, but each glance at her sister reminded her of the delicate balance they were entering. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, aware that every choice from this point forward would carry weight. The unknown loomed large, but so did the undeniable pull of their shared heartbeats. Samantha, ever daring yet suddenly introspective, tried to reconcile the thrill of Billy's confession with her own fears. Her mind flickered through a dozen what-ifs, the laughter and lightness from before replaced by the gravity of the moment. Could love really exist this way, without jealousy destroying what they held sacred? Could they trust each other and him to navigate a path society might never understand? Even as doubt whispered, a small smile tugged at her lips. The spark of adventure, of possibility, refused to be extinguished. The three of them sat in a quiet triangle, emotions raw, unspoken, yet intimately intertwined. And in that fragile, electric silence, the first step toward something extraordinary began to take shape. Billy reached out gently, his hand resting near theirs, grounding the swirling storm of feelings with quiet certainty. He didn't have all the answers, but his honesty created a space where the impossible suddenly felt possible. The sisters felt it too, the fragile promise of connection, love, and shared courage that could either strengthen them or test every limit they had ever known. There was no map, no clear path, only the three of them navigating their hearts together, learning, questioning, and daring to feel. And as the afternoon light began to fade, a subtle, unspoken understanding hung between them. The journey had begun, full of wonder, risk, and emotions too powerful to ignore. Their hearts were open, fragile, and ready for what came next. The first weeks of their unconventional relationship were a whirlwind of exhilaration and uncertainty. Sophia and Samantha discovered new sides of themselves, their hearts expanding in ways they hadn't imagined possible. Billy's presence was a constant, gentle anchor, yet it also amplified every subtle insecurity between the sisters. Even in laughter, there were moments of quiet comparison, a fleeting pang when one noticed the other leaning closer to him. Their home, once predictable and safe, now buzzed with a tension that was as thrilling as it was fragile. Every touch, every smile, every glance carried layers of meaning, each one testing the limits of trust and love. Sophia, thoughtful and introspective, found herself second-guessing small interactions, replaying moments over and over in her mind. She worried about boundaries, about keeping the sisters' bond intact, and about the way society would judge them if their secret ever slipped out. Yet, even in her caution, there were moments of pure, unrestrained joy, a shared joke with Billy, a gentle touch from Samantha, a fleeting sense that love could be limitless. The emotional highs were breathtaking, but so were the lows, subtle as they were, creeping in like shadows at the edge of a sunlit room. The push and pull between desire, loyalty, and fear created a rhythm that was both intoxicating and exhausting. Samantha, fiery and bold, embraced the adventure with passion, but even she couldn't ignore the undercurrent of unease that sometimes rippled through the trio. Jealousy, even if unspoken, hovered in quiet corners, testing the bonds they were all learning to navigate. And yet, moments of intense connection reminded them why they had chosen this path. The laughter that bounced around the room, the shared confidences, and the quiet comfort of knowing they were not alone. Friends and family, unaware of the truth, began to sense changes, subtle glances, and whispered moods that didn't match the world's expectations. In that delicate balance of love and tension, each heartbeat felt amplified, every choice carrying the weight of uncharted emotional terrain. The stage was set, and beneath the surface, a storm was quietly gathering. Sophia noticed it first, the subtle shift in Samantha's smile, the tiny hesitation when Billy's hand brushed against hers. It was almost imperceptible, but her heart seized at the thought of tension creeping in. She reminded herself to breathe, to trust the bond they shared, but the whisper of doubt lingered, gnawing quietly at the edges of her happiness. Billy, for his part, seemed blissfully unaware of the storm simmering beneath the surface, his focus on shared laughter and gentle touches meant to soothe. Yet the sisters' emotions were complicated, layered, and unpredictable, and no amount of charm or warmth could erase the sudden pangs of insecurity. Each day became a delicate dance, a careful negotiation between hearts unwilling to hurt one another, yet too full of feeling to ignore. Samantha, meanwhile, wrestled with flashes of jealousy she hadn't anticipated, feeling them twist unexpectedly in her chest. She loved Billy's attention, yes, but she also feared that Sophia might feel overlooked or hurt, and the thought made her restless. Her bold, daring spirit clashed with the tender fear that she could break the fragile harmony of their relationship. Small gestures, an affectionate look, a lingering touch, could ignite waves of emotion, leaving her both exhilarated and exhausted. Even ordinary moments like walking together or sharing a meal were now charged with unspoken questions and delicate expectations. The balance between desire, love, and sisterhood was precarious, teetering on the edge of discovery and conflict. Friends and family, though unaware of the full truth, began to sense the subtle change in their dynamic. Invitations, casual conversations, and shared outings became exercises in careful navigation, where every smile and laugh was measured and every comment weighed. Billy's presence, though comforting, added another layer of complexity to interactions, as if the world itself was subtly testing the trio. Amid the laughter and intimate moments, Tension coiled like a quiet storm, hinting that their happiness was fragile and that one misstep could unravel the delicate web they had woven. Yet in the eye of this emotional hurricane, they found moments of breathtaking connection, fleeting yet unforgettable, binding them together even as uncertainty loomed over every heartbeat. The tension reached a subtle yet undeniable peak one evening as the three of them sat together, the golden light of sunset spilling across the room. Sophia felt a quiet ache, a mix of longing and fear, every glance at Billy magnifying her insecurities. Samantha's laughter, usually carefree and bright, carried a tremor Sophia couldn't ignore, a hint that her sister felt the same undercurrent of unease. Billy, sensing the subtle shifts but unsure of their source, tried to bridge the quiet spaces with gentle words and easy humor. Yet the invisible threads of jealousy, worry, and desire twined around them all, creating a fragile, almost tangible tension. Each heartbeat seemed to echo in the room, a reminder that their delicate harmony could be disrupted at any moment. Small incidents began to reveal the strain beneath the surface, a fleeting glare, a moment of hesitation before reaching for his hand, a sigh barely noticed. These minor cracks, almost imperceptible, carried weight because their emotions were heightened, every interaction magnified by love and fear. Sophia found herself retreating inward at times, seeking reassurance in solitude, while Samantha grappled with the need to express herself without igniting conflict. The balance between intimacy and independence, passion and caution, became increasingly difficult to maintain. Friends' casual questions, innocent curiosity, and subtle judgments added layers of pressure neither sister could fully escape. And yet, through the tension, there were moments of profound connection that reminded them why they had chosen this path. As days passed, the undercurrent of strain hinted at a looming event, something neither sister wanted to name, but both sensed approaching. Even in shared laughter and warm touches, there was a quiet vigilance, a subtle awareness that happiness was fragile and precarious. Billy's presence, once a simple source of joy, now carried the weight of responsibility, of keeping hearts aligned amidst competing emotions. The sisters, despite their love for each other and him, began to feel the first pangs of an emotional storm, one that promised to test their bond in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Shadows lingered at the edges of smiles, a quiet foreshadowing of the heartbreak that might be just around the corner. And in that delicate, electric balance, the story braced for the arrival of an unexpected tragedy. The morning began like any other, sunlight spilling softly across the kitchen, yet there was an unspoken heaviness in the air. Sophia moved slowly, sensing a subtle shift in the world around her, though she couldn't name it. Samantha, ever vibrant and daring, hummed a tune as she prepared breakfast, unaware that fate had already drawn a line they couldn't cross. Billy poured coffee for both, the warmth in the cup a fragile comfort against the storm neither could yet see. Small gestures, the brush of a hand, a shared smile, felt tender, fleeting, as if the universe itself were pausing to savor them. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm of the morning, an undercurrent of tragedy was quietly building, impossible to ignore. Then, in an instant, the unthinkable happened. Samantha's laughter froze, replaced by a sudden gasp as she clutched her chest. Time seemed to warp, the kitchen lights blurring as panic surged through Sophia and Billy. The world narrowed to the sharp, desperate sounds of breathing, the crash of her body against the floor, the echo of a life interrupted too soon. Shock paralyzed Sophia, her mind refusing to comprehend the impossible, while Billy's hands trembled as he tried to reach her, to hold back the inevitable. Every second stretched into an eternity, each heartbeat pounding with disbelief, grief, and helplessness. In that single, terrifying moment, the delicate balance they had built shattered, leaving nothing but raw, unimaginable loss. Sophia sank to the floor beside her sister, tears spilling freely, voice breaking as she whispered words she never thought she'd say. Billy's hands hovered helplessly over Samantha, his usual calm and charm dissolved into frantic desperation. Memories, small gestures, laughter and love, all the moments they had shared, rushed through their minds like fragments of a life now gone. The house, once filled with warmth, now echoed with silence, punctuated only by their sobs and the stark reality of absence. In those first moments of grief, the weight of love and loss pressed down with unbearable force, reshaping every thought, every breath, every heartbeat. And as the sun climbed higher, Casting light on the tragedy that had struck, the surviving hearts were left to navigate a world forever changed. The hours that followed blurred into a haze of sirens, whispered questions, and the cold sterility of a hospital room. Sophia clung to Billy's arm, her tears soaking his sleeve, her body trembling with a grief so raw it felt like it could crush her. Billy's usual warmth was now edged with a helpless panic, his hands hovering over nothing, searching for a presence that was no longer there. Memories of Samantha's laughter, her daring smile, and the fire in her eyes played relentlessly in their minds, each recollection cutting sharper than the last. The world outside moved on, oblivious to the void left behind, while inside, time seemed suspended in an endless echo of loss. Every breath was heavy, each heartbeat a painful reminder of the love they had and the sister they had lost. Sophia's mind oscillated between disbelief and the haunting certainty that Samantha was gone, leaving a gaping hole where joy and mischief had once thrived. She remembered the small gestures, the teasing remarks, the shared glances with Billy, the playful bickering that now seemed like echoes from another life. Billy tried to speak, to offer comfort, but words failed him, the weight of grief rendering him almost paralyzed. Their shared sorrow became a bond of its own, a fragile lifeline in a world that suddenly seemed cruelly incomplete. And yet, amidst the heartbreak, a quiet understanding lingered. Their love, though now steeped in loss, would endure, reshaped by the tragedy, but not extinguished. The memory of Samantha hovered in every corner, a bittersweet presence guiding the steps of the living. As days turned into nights, the surviving pair began to navigate life altered forever. Walks in the park, quiet dinners, and even shared laughter carried traces of the absent sister, a reminder of what had been and what could never be again. Billy and Sophia's love deepened, intertwined with grief, memory, and the unspoken promise to honor the bond they had shared with Samantha. Yet shadows lingered, subtle pangs of guilt and longing weaving through their moments of connection, a reminder that happiness now carried the weight of remembrance. Every smile was tinged with melancholy, every touch infused with a reverence for the love they had lost. And in the quiet spaces between their shared heartbeats, the fragile beauty of continuing life emerged, bittersweet and haunting, forever marked by the sister who had left too soon. Time moved differently now, each day stretching long and heavy, colored by the absence of Samantha. Sophia and Billy clung to each other, their love a fragile but necessary shield against the emptiness surrounding them. Memories of Samantha lingered in every corner, the way she laughed at nothing, the daring sparkle in her eyes, the small gestures that had filled their days with warmth. Even ordinary moments became imbued with her presence, a bittersweet reminder of the joy and light that had been lost. Grief and love intertwined, creating an emotional landscape they had to navigate carefully, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. The world seemed smaller, quieter, and yet somehow more intimate, shaped by the love that remained. Sophia found herself speaking to Samantha in the quiet of her room, words whispered into the emptiness as if her sister could hear. Billy would hold her, offering the comfort that words could not, their shared sorrow deepening the bond between them. There were moments of laughter too, small, fragile sparks that reminded them life could still hold tenderness amidst tragedy. Each smile, each touch, carried weight, a recognition of the love that had been and the delicate future they had to forge. The pain of loss was never far, but it became a companion rather than a chain, guiding their choices and strengthening their connection in unexpected ways. And in that space between grief and hope, life continued, fragile, luminous, and achingly human. Slowly, the three hearts that had once been whole together were reduced to two, yet their bond endured, reshaped by love, memory, and sorrow. The tragedy had altered everything, the way they laughed, loved, and even breathed, but it had not destroyed the capacity to feel, to connect, and to cherish the moments that remained. Billy and Sophia moved forward, carrying Samantha in their hearts, letting her presence shape their decisions, their affection, and their understanding of love's complexity. The bittersweet reality settled around them like a soft, persistent shadow, a reminder that love can endure, but never without cost. And as they faced the quiet evenings together, hand in hand, they felt the delicate ache of what had been, and the fragile promise of what could still be, forever marked by the sister who had left too soon.